IPMNation.com.
All Natural Being. Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome to All Natural Being. It's Brian, fired up to be hanging out with you for the hour. It's kicking off Monday morning. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Whether you're listening live, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern time this morning, you're catching the rebroadcast at 11 a.m., or then again at 8 p.m. Eastern. Let me again thank you for hanging out and making us the number one show. I think we're coming up on like our 75th episode sometime this week, but number one show here on IPM Nation. And as I say each and every time I mention that, I think we're number one because this is a show about you, the real you, the true you, the all-natural you, not the watered-down version, not the toxic version, not the baggage-laden version that so many of us run around with, but the real you, the true you. And that's why it's an honor. It's like hanging out with kindred, right? It's like hanging out with an extended family. I have a blast each and every time we get to hang out together. So thank you very much again. Also, don't forget 331-684-7685. Already getting some text in this morning. 331-684-SOUL. And of course, over on Facebook, the official page, Brian Brawdy Official, is the how you hook up on Facebook. And then also allnaturalbeing.com. Send me your email. I'll send you mine. We'll hook up that way, and we'll keep in touch. And we've got a bunch of cool things that are coming on. I keep trying to learn more and more about what we can do, especially with all the craziness going on in the world. I said on Friday, I don't even know how to open a show. And then we get through the weekend. And then here we are Monday morning, obviously thinking about the families. I can tell you as an ex-cop in New York, thinking about the families of the 3 officers killed yesterday in Baton Rouge. One hopefully going to be okay, but they say critically injured, and the other 2 that sustained non-life-threatening injuries. And it's kind of tough. As I got up this morning at 2:30 to write the show, I'll be honest with you, there was a part of me just like, let's just take the day off. I can't even wrap my head around it, forget it. I can't even get my heart fired up to wrap around the concept of yet again, we just indiscriminately target innocent people because we're angry. We're full of rage. And we can't get that angry. We can't be that full of rage without outside stimuli. Think about it. When you hear me say, they made me so angry. Well, in fact, that's only half the gig, right? We have to let people in. We have to be the co-conspirator. We have to let the words of another incite us to any emotion that we have. So the day I was driving around with my son, I forget where we were going, my oldest son, and I heard a commercial on the radio, which speaks to the synchronicity. You know what, I believe that everything happens and the universe attempts to highlight for you a fingerprint of providence in the moment. If you're just, your visual acuity, your ability to see what's going on right in front of you is sharp enough, gives you whatever you need right there in the moment. And I found it fascinating. This was a commercial that came on the radio for an outdoor or a home improvement company. And the tagline for this particular product, I don't know, remember it was decking material or something like that, something that was going to be put outside of your home. It said, and this was its big claim to fame, resistant to weathering. And well, I have this little app on my phone that whenever I hear something that really grabs my attention, if you're on a computer, you underline it, you bold it, you copy it, put a border around it, do something to remind yourself, well, if I'm out and about and a fingerprint of Providence hits, little something that I'm supposed to pay attention to here in the labyrinth, when it hits, I'll just get out my phone and I'll record it. So that later when I come back and go to write about it, it's like my portable little evidence blotter, my portable journal. I just talk into the phone. And I recorded this one right away. Resistant to weathering. And that makes me think of everything going on in the world today. You and I aren't born angry. We're not born disappointed. We're not born furious. We're not born racist. We're not born any of those things. But some of us are more susceptible to weathering. Some of us, thankfully, a lot of us, thankfully, are more resistant to weathering. But some of us, absolutely susceptible to it. Absolutely affected by the winds blowing at us from the outside. Absolutely allowing ourselves to be a pincushion so that the pins that people throw stick right in us. And for some, they hurt. They make us angry. And then we act out. So as we move forward, what can we do? We have to watch. Again, sticks and stones, they break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Well, that's not the life we have now. That's not what it's like in this generation. We have to be careful what we say. Obviously, I have a bias being an ex-cop, but I've also been terribly critical. Not of law enforcement, but of bad cops. I'm also critical of the medical profession. Not all of doctors, just bad doctors. Critical of the profession of lawyers. Not all lawyers, just bad lawyers. I'm not critical of all drivers, just bad drivers. And I think that when we paint with a very broad brush and we say, oh, well, that we have a problem with law enforcement in this country. No, we don't. There may be some bad apples. There may be some people that shouldn't have a gun and a badge, shouldn't be a police officer. But that shouldn't give us the right, or at least it shouldn't spark us to paint everybody with that broad brush. And that's what happens. And we know who they are. We know who the people are that continue. These are tubs of ointment just waiting for a fly. Absolutely content breeding the division. And I will tell you, as a personal aside, doing what I can to be resistant to weathering, it comes back to the 20-minute victory. It comes back to 20-second victories. What can I do to buffer myself from the weathering, to buffer myself from the storm? And I thought this morning I could read 100 quotes about, maybe I'll just share one, but when it talks about listening to outside opinion, I call it the static quo. You've heard me mention it before. Can't always listen to outside opinion. We have to dovetail our heart and our heads to do what's right. So when we listen to these agitators, again, I fall back on the position that in order to be agitated, it takes two to agitate. But for some of these minds running around today, they're absolutely affected by the rhetoric. I think it was telltale that the killer yesterday in Baton Rouge decided to do it on his birthday. This was his way of celebrating. What happens to a human mind when it wants to celebrate by taking another life? So for me, it goes back to the rhetoric. It goes back to realizing, just like that you can't, and you hear all the time, oh, well, we have to try to get along. Agreed. Shep Smith all worked up yesterday on Fox News because someone dared say all lives matter, and that they thought that was confrontational and the like. But they do matter. The division that people want to keep preaching That's absolutely contrary to all natural being. Absolutely contrary to it. Why? Because the continent you were born on, the political class you're subject to, all that's supposed to make, just because it's normal doesn't make it natural. That division is supposed to exist. Because what? Because we're told it does? Study after study after study after study says infants, little kids, toddlers, they don't recognize the division. So I guess almost like Yoda in Star Wars, we must unlearn that which we have learned. Or, who was it? Bucky Fuller, the inventor, said that everyone is a born genius. Society de-geniuses us. So all I can do to add, not just to the discussion, but what I can do to try to make a difference is to remind folks each and every day, Monday through Friday, that beneath all the division is our all-natural being. That there's dirt in our DNA. We were born of this planet. And whether you believe in the Almighty, whether you believe in aliens put us here, maybe you're an atheist. We'll call it AAA. Almighty, aliens, or atheists. Don't care. You should. None of my business. Think the way you like. But underneath all of that, we come from the dirt of this planet, which comes from an exploding sun. So we're all connected. We're all made of the same stuff. Quote George Carlin. All made of the same stuff. So maybe the degeniusing effects we grow into, what we need to shed is this concept of truly being different just because of the pigment of your skin or because of a religious belief. So that's all I can do. I've some friends texting me this morning going, good golly, what's going on? What can we do? I mean, there's some of the mechanical stuff like just, be prepared. Are you capable? Do you, for example, here's a simple one, and I don't know if any of you know of my history, but, of my days surviving out in the middle of nowhere, and everyone is convinced that makes me a prepper and this and that. But as I've said before in the past, do you buy auto insurance? Sure. Then you're a prepper. You buy more than a day's worth of food? Sure, then you're a prepper. All I'm suggesting is that in situations like this, do you know how to do first aid? Do you know how to do CPR? If a loved one or a neighbor was hurt, would you know how to be able to take care of them? If you can't call on anyone else, can you call on yourself? And until we get through this, until those of us working to rekindle the understanding of an all-natural being, beneath all this craziness, beneath all this anger and arrogance, beneath it all, we have our all-natural being. Until that becomes a more mainstream philosophy, then there's some practical things that you and I can do. If the craziness continues, you might go to call 911 for help, and it may not be there. Would you know how to dress a wound? I mean, let's get down to the brass tacks of it for a minute. If something happened, and for whatever reason, no one's able to come to help you, can you help yourself? Do you know how to do the Heimlich maneuver? And in this day and age on YouTube, internet, Vimeo, maybe even Facebook Live, I don't know. You get it wherever you get it, but it's inexcusable not to know how to do the Heimlich maneuver, CPR, the most basic of first aid. You'll be able to help your family, going to be able to help your neighbors, your local community if something happens and no one can come for you. So that's kind of like where the brass tacks of it, where it meets to me. I go, okay, great. If this is going to continue to go on, what can I do philosophically? What can I do for my heart? Keep preaching this concept of all natural being. What can I do for my head? What can I do physically? Know that there may come a situation where, could you get your own drinking water? What happens if the power goes out? Well, do you have flashlights? Do you know how to use different things? So if you can't call on anyone else, can you call on yourself? So I know that's probably a little different than what some people expected to hear. You know what I think about that? But in times like this, that's how I handle it. Philosophically, what can I do for the big picture? Physically, what can I do a little closer to home to make sure that if it ever comes to a situation where I need help and I go to dial 911 and the police and the paramedics and the fire department are busy somewhere else, would I know what I'm doing? Then again, as I say, when my friends ask me to, if I know of a situation where I think it would be helpful, I take the names of the people that were killed, regardless of what side of the badge they're on, regardless of the pigment of the uppermost layer of their skin. I take their names to the sunrise. I take their names to the woods. And just keep them in my mind. All right, let's do a quick break and then we'll be right back.
IPMNation.com.
All right, jumping into this morning's show, we'll have the anaerobic aphorism, but I also wanted to talk about, before we do that, now let's do this. Let's do the anaerobic aphorism first, then I want to come back. I've got a lot of critique lately that 20-minute victories, mindfulness, the 20-second victories, people are having some hard time with it, so I want to be able to address that. So let's do this. We'll go to the anaerobic aphorism. Honestly, do you ever wonder if you respect yourself enough to be really happy? I mean, everyone's talking about it. Everybody wants it. And it's supposedly, if you listen to me, I say it's innate. It's within us. Did you ever wonder, why is it so hard for some people to find that if it really is truly in us, as I believe it is, happiness can be the underlying operating state in our minds? Then maybe you and I disrespect ourselves. Maybe we're disappointed in ourselves. Maybe there's something about what we're doing that causes us to feel like we shouldn't have that underlying operating system of happiness. So be honest. When you look in the mirror, do you ever wonder if you're unhappy because you don't respect yourself? You take yourself for granted. You throw yourself under the bus. You load yourself up with all this extra baggage that doesn't really do you any good at all. You ever wonder about that? If you're unhappy, I believe it's because you've forgotten who you are. You have amnesia. You have blind spots. If you're sad, if you're apathetic, if you're busy, if you're lonely, if you're disrespecting yourself, if you're fearful or timid, I think you've forgotten who you are. Because at your core, I believe you have everything. You are everything you need to come out on top in life. To make this run at the labyrinth meaningful, fulfilling, absolutely crushing it in the end. Do you ever wonder, do you respect yourself enough to be off the charts happy, fulfilled, off the charts thrilled with your life? And if you're not, maybe, don't know, not accusing you of anything, you may want to ask yourself, do I respect myself enough to be really happy? All right, so let's jump in. I want to talk a little bit about it, but let's get to our segments first. Segment number 1 today, pin the tail on the trauma. Wow, pin the tail on the trauma. We're going to use a Nietzsche quote to kick us off when we get to that segment. Language dictates consciousness. We're going to talk all about that in segment number 1, pin the tail on the trauma. Segment number 2, I'm calling it Around the Corner Courage. I've got a couple of quotes. Maybe we'll read them real quick and then we'll go back to them. But you remember the Impressionist painter, Edgar Degas? He had a couple cool quotes that I often think about. Only when he no longer knows what he is doing does the painter do good things. Only when he no longer knows what he is doing does the painter do good things. And I always follow that up one. I always follow it up with another one of his. And I like, because he's a painter, he was a sculptor. He said one time that you must aim high, not in what you are going to do at some future date, but in what you are going to make of yourself right now, today. We're going to talk about that. Around the corner courage. Everybody was born with it, but you never would have learned to roll over, sit up, crawl, walk, stumble, walk, run, climb. Never would have learned of any of those things. So I know it's in you. It's innate. Around the corner courage. We're going to talk about that in segment 2. And then segment 3, it's time for your brain to take a break. Really cool article that I found. One, it won't surprise you at all that I agree with wholeheartedly, that just talks about the brain. It needs a nap from time to time. It needs some white space. And people go, oh, I just stared at the laptop and there was that white page and the flashing cursor. And they go, oh, I got writer's block. Well, maybe writer's block is a good thing every so often. If you're a writer, you should take a break from writing. Go play. Draw your name in the sand with a stick. Get outside. Have some fun. We're going to focus on that in segment number 3. All right, so getting back to some of the requests, some of the comments. Don't forget 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. You can reach out to me there, and then also over on Facebook. Send me anything that you're thinking. We'll try to go ahead and get it incorporated into our show this morning. All right, so based on that, 331-684-7685, and also allnaturalbeing.com. People send emails. They're saying, oh, I'm having a hard time quieting my mind. We talk about the ego shield. We talk about the 20-second victory. We breathe in, exhale, scan the horizon, take action. We're having a little bit of difficulty with this concept. You know me, I say mindfulness. I like the idea of mindlessness. I think we got enough mind. We got enough binge thinking. We've got enough serial cogitation going on. That mindlessness, probably a better thing to enjoy. But that said, people having a difficult time with meditation. So it made me think. Most times when people want to take up meditation, they'll go, oh, because I want to alleviate stress. They've got something wrong going on. So they pick up meditation in an attempt to remove what's wrong. And for me, it's never been about that. Meditation, 20-minute victories, mindful, mindlessness, whatever you want to call it. We ignore the wrong and we focus on the strong. Because meditation, mindfulness, 20-minute victory, 20-second victory, it's not designed as a cure. And if you forgive all the words that sound alike, but all the rhymes, but this really is the truth. It's not a cure. It's a way to secure your pure. Secure your pure. Protect your core. One of the things that's going on in the world is that we all could stand to a little bit of spiritual survival, making sure that our spirit, which I think is simply the energy of your soul, right? Your spirit, the energy, levels of energy can wane or wax, ebb and flow. But when we go into meditation, mindfulness, as you know, I call them 20-minute victories, whatever you call it. When you go into it, we ignore the wrong. We don't go into it because we want to cure something. We go into it to secure that part of our pure at our core. We're getting ready to do a webinar here next week. I believe we're going to launch it. At least we're going to open it so we can start. People can start signing up and going, yeah, I want to be a part of a weekly webinar, part of one big family where we can get together, pretty much say whatever we want. We'll take questions. You know what I mean? It'll be a really cool thing. I'm very excited about it. And I call it a primal revival. The primal parts of you, the authentic, the genuine parts of you. That's the pure we want to secure. Because when we I'll talk all the time about an evolutionary leap backwards to who you are at your core. The root of your being, to paraphrase Rumi. That's the pure that we need to secure. Because when we can get back to square one, when we can get back to step one, then we have our launching pad. But if we don't have our foundation, if we don't secure our pure, everything else we do is going to be sandcastle under a red flag warning, right? If you're familiar with the beach, red flag means, the winds and the waves are coming.
Oh, okay. I'll run down to the surf and I'll build a sandcastle.
Well, a lot of people look around. We lead our lives that way. But when you secure your pure, when you treat meditation, mindful, mindlessness, whatever term you're comfortable with, when you treat it as a way to focus on the strong, not anything that's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Some baggage that your ego takes, but that can't taint you unless you're comfortable, unless it's become the norm in your life to be the co-conspirator and let that in. But that's on you. That's on us when we do that. It's not on your pure. It doesn't touch your soul. Doesn't touch your soul. So as we move into doing these things, remember, how are you going to secure your pure? How are you going to focus on the strength in you? We focus on the strong, not what's wrong. And when we do that, that's what our breathing reconnects us with. That's what slowing down our mind, that's what being in the labyrinth reconnects us with. At least our awareness of it, because we can't be disconnected. That's one of the reasons I often worry about the word reconnect, because it implies that we're somehow disconnected from it, only in our awareness. So recognize may be a better term. Maybe I'll use that from out. It's really more recognize or recognizing than reconnecting, because it never leaves you. It's a part of who you are. And then you and I get to a point one day where we just go, I'm done carrying all this extra baggage. So instead of focusing on our baggage, what do they tell us now? As a man thinketh, as a woman thinketh. What we focus on, we make real. Well, if we focus on what's wrong with us, is it any wonder that the meditation, the mindfulness, the mindlessness, 20-minute victories, of course they can't work. We're busy beating ourselves up. Talk about disrespecting ourselves. It's no wonder we're not happy. We're so busy disrespecting ourselves by habitually going over a laundry list of stuff that's wrong with us. Stuff. You thought I was going to say crap. I'm thinking of getting a little tip jar, apparently. I'll throw $1 in every time I say crap. I'm down $2. It's about focusing on the strong, not the wrong. Let everyone else carry the baggage. Everyone else disrespect themselves. But that's not for you. So I say all the time, all natural being, it makes you a rare breed. People go, oh, that's elitist. Tough luck. Well, that's just wrong. Tough luck again. I'm here to tell you that the people that work to reconnect, to recognize, to revitalize, and restore in their lives are all natural being, that does make you a rare breed. And if people don't like me saying, oh, no, that just makes you a separatist. Not at all. But it makes you a rare breed if you decide that's the way you're going to live your life. Makes you a rare breed. All right, let's do this. We're going to take a quick break, and then I want to get to segment number 1.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. How much longer will you let them hijack your head and your heart?
You know, I love this. You ever get one of those things over on Facebook? Oh, we just want to let you know, in case you didn't realize, there's a sunglass event that's running out of, you're soon going to be blocked from it. Okay, great. Whoa, cool. Man, I was on pins and needles. I wasn't sure when the close date was. Oh, well, it's midnight tonight. Oh, thank goodness. I have all day to ignore you. All right, let's get to segment number 1 with the focus of the things of your strong, not your wrong. I called it Pin the Tail on the Trauma. Nietzsche. You know him. You love him. Or maybe you hate him. Who knows? Nietzsche. Language dictates consciousness. So here are a couple studies, and I want to pull this one up just because I was fascinated. And you know how I believe, once again, that in the labyrinth, different things will pop up. So, and people say, well, how do you find the fingerprints of providence? You're a cop, you're a detective, you're a criminal investigator. How did you learn how to do it? And the key to it is just being open to it. Just being open to whatever evidence you may stumble upon. We talked, I believe it was last week, about channeling your inner Sherlock Holmes. Your Inspector Clouseau. If you could do that. Excuse me, does your dog bat? Dog rips his hand right off. He goes, excuse me, I thought you said your dog does not bat. The guy says, that's not my dog. So channel your inner Clouseau. Channel your inner Sherlock Holmes. Look for the evidence presented right there in front of you. So yesterday I'm reading a book. I try to get through a book, about a book a day. Yesterday I was reading a book, and then, just reading, come across and go, oh yeah, I absolutely believe that. I can see that. I do it to myself all the time. So then this morning I get up and I get an email from a friend. Totally, he had no clue that I was reading this book. And it talks about, over our friends at Cyblog, with the subtitle, I love Cyblog, Understand Your Mind. The title is Anxiety Reduction Technique Works Despite Disbelief, a study finds. Now here's the scoop. It's called labeling. And what that means is, in both the book, and then I read a couple other articles that were tangential to the book, and then again this morning I wake up, here it is. It says, labeling anxiety, even though people go, oh, that won't work, that's just crazy. Quote, labeling anxiety, putting the feeling into words, can reduce the fear response, the fight or flight, according to research. Quote, in fact, the more fearful words people use to describe their anxiety, the more their anxiety reduces. So you're pinning the tail on the trauma. You're calling them out. Now, it talks about, in both the book and the studies, it says, well, people don't believe that's going to work, so they sensed the temperature, the conductance of your skin, so they could tell. Really does. And then they compared it in this study of different ways of how you reduce your study. Can you distract it? Oh, you think of something else, or reappraisal. Oh, it doesn't, it's sucky, but not really sucky, right? We talk all the time. Engage the suck. Now, my brother from the military used to call embrace the suck, and I don't want to, I'm not taking it on a date. We're not going to hang out on Snapchat. We're not going to take long walks on the beach. I just like to engage it. Other people are welcome to embrace it. I think there's enough embracing going on. I like the concept of engaging the suck. Well, according to these articles, run by researchers all over the place, and according to these books, once you engage the suck, you got to put a name on it. And that when you do, when you go, this was brutal, this was gross, this was disgusting, when we label it, when we don't let it hide in the little nooks and crannies of our minds, in the crawl spaces, right, in the dusty attics, the junk drawers, when we don't let it hide in there by calling it out and go, you know what, this really stinks. I mean, it stinks like dead 10-day-old fish in the sun at the equator. I mean, it really, right? So the more descriptive that you can become, the more you can verbalize those emotions, the less effect they have on you. It's as if once you're in your arm wrestling around with this emotion, which if you don't deal with it causes the anxiety, you're in there arm wrestling around. But when you label it, when you pin the tail on the trauma, it takes its power away, or it begins to reduce the power that it has over you. So let me read one of the quotes. The study's author described the results. Quote, the effect labeling group exhibited reduced skin conductance, because remember, they just want to make sure they were telling the truth about, the fight or float syndrome and what it does in your body, and they just want to say, oh yeah, I feel much better now that I label this suck how sucky it really is. So they go, you can't trust people, you can't take them for their opinion, right? So we're going to test their skin. Skin can't lie. So the effect of the labeling group exhibited reduced skin conductance, And they did a lot better job relative to the groups that used distraction. Oh, I won't deal with the suck today. I'll put it over there. I'll deal with it. Ooh, Saturdays are suck day. I'll deal with it on Saturday. No, it didn't work. Or the reappraising. Oh, well, wasn't as bad as I thought. Balagna. According to this study, greater use of anxiety and fear words during exposure was associated with greater reductions in fear responding. Now, this particular study, they're talking about spiders. And I think, you know what, now that I remember back, they mentioned spiders in the book as well. They talked about, because I guess like spiders freak a lot of people. I remember one time in Arizona kicking back. I was hiking around. My friend Jess, sitting there. Here comes a tarantula. I can tell you, my heart was pounding. Right? You think back to all those James Bond movies. How are we going to get James Bond? We'll drop a tarantula in. That tarantula will get him. Right? Or wherever I first came across that. But it was something else. My friend Jess said, just don't move. Leave it for him there. And here comes this tarantula right across my forearm. Kept right on going. I was like a speed bump. It was a little earthy berm. Kept right on moving. Heart beating out of my chest. Now, I probably wouldn't describe it in horrific terms. But according to this study, multiple studies, quote, when a current emotional experience is verbalized, whether in spoken or written form, that's great news because we could write down how just brutal, horrific, infuriating. Everyone goes, oh, I meditate now, so I never let myself get furious. Really? You got to get a load of my life, right? Because we want to get it out. We want to exercise that out. Because if not, what happens? It becomes bottled up, and then we explode and talk about collateral damage. We end up hurting the people around us. But according to the research, whether it's spoken or in written form, the distress that's caused by that picture in our mind, the memory of that anxiety, is reduced. And if you don't verbalize it, it isn't. So maybe we take out our journal. Maybe we take out our logbook. Maybe we took out our evidence blotter, whatever we record in. And if something's getting you down, paint a really, I mentioned, I think we didn't I? Let me see, where am I? Oh, no, that's coming up in segment 2. Great segue. What a writer. Oh, I gotta increase his salary. When we paint our trauma like a painter, we really bring that. Now, we're not going to hang out with it forever. That's why I said we don't embrace it, we engage it. So maybe give yourself 20 minutes. Be as descriptive of it as you possibly can, and then tear it up, shred it, burn it on the stove, throw it in the sink. Do whatever you want to get rid of it. But the researchers are telling us now that if you paint it in a very vivid picture in your mind and then let it go, when you let it go, a lot of the power goes with it. So pin the tail on the trauma. Don't try to reclassify it.
Oh, that's, I got both of my legs broken. It wasn't as bad as one would think.
Yeah, it was. Oh, this happened. Oh, that happened. Oh, all these other things happened. Yeah, it really was. And then paint that vivid picture, knowing that very shortly you're going to let it go. You don't want to hold it. You don't want to embrace it. You're not going to leave it in your back pocket. You're not going to fold it up and leave it in your wallet so that it just continues to taunt you. Paint that vivid picture and then get ready to let it go. Nietzsche was right. Language dictates consciousness. So we can have a language of going, you know what, that was really, really crappy. And then you either say it or write it down, knowing you're going to strip it of its energy over you. Candidly, if it's just between you and I, the energy that you permit it to have over you, we won't let anybody else know. But when we do that, the energy is gone. And maybe we practice it 2 or 3 times. That's what makes these things so scalable, so doable. Maybe we start off, 20-second victory, breathe in, exhale, scan the horizon, take notes. Make it as visually, auditorily. Give it some word. We talk about visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Put some feeling words. Put some sight words the way it looks. Some words about the way it sounds when you think about this. Let's strip it of its power. Leave it alongside of the road. Put it in the rearview mirror. Throw some gravel. I think these researchers are really onto something. Just be honest, because that's a part of all natural being. If it's crappy, admit that it's crappy. Don't bury it. Because when you bury crappy, it's, oh my God, I'm going to have like $11 in the tip jar. If it's, I can't believe I can get away with sucky, but I can't get away with crappy. If it really stinks and we just bury it, then it's going to keep stinking. So I say, get out your evidence platform. Maybe you're going to use your phone like I do from time to time. Record it. Make it, is it live or is it Memorex? Make it as real in your mind as you can and then say goodbye to it. See ya. Have a nice life. All right, we'll be right back.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Because it's never too late to take your life back.
It's never too late to take your life back. We say that every show, and that is absolutely true. If you're hearing me for the first time or you've been along with me for a while, you know that every chance is the perfect second chance to tap into your all-natural being. So I talked before about around-the-corner courage. We mentioned the painter. He was probably more known for his painting than his sculptures, but he had some great sculptures too. Degas. Edgar Degas. He said, only when he no longer knows what he's doing does the painter do good things. No longer know what he's doing, so he's throwing it open to the labyrinth. Whatever hits, hits. He has courage for around the corner courage, however you want to call it. Doesn't have to see. No, is confident in his ability, in his all-natural being, that whatever the blind alley holds, whatever the next left, the next right, consistencies, discrepancies, the lunges, the lapses, the ups and downs, the pivots, the swerves, whatever it is, you got a courage for it. She knows she can handle whatever sits just around the corner in the labyrinth. And when you do that, if you take his words for it, and you don't know what you're doing, but you know you'll do it when you need to, that's when the good things happen. Which is why I always use it in combination with another one of my favorite quotes of his. You must aim high. Not what you're going to do at some future date, but in what you are going to make of yourself right now, today. Now, for me, I would make it in this moment. So it's, you can aim high. It's just not aiming long distance and high. So maybe it's more of a focus of sharpening our vision so that we can see what's right here in front of us. Right? When we increase our acuity for the moment at hand, not some future date, but what we got going on right now, I think that's aiming high. And it may be high and wide, right? Like a 360. Spherical 360 that just keeps spinning. And when you train your acuity for the periphery, right in front of you and the periphery, up, down, left, right, that's when the evidence can't help but be discovered. Was it all the time the student is ready, the teacher appears? I think the teacher's there all the time. The evidence is there all the time. You know, one of the first crime scenes I ever went to, you go in. I remember it was an apartment complex. It was a burglary, and I was just about ready to open the door, and my sergeant kind of put his arm out to grab me because he didn't want me to step into the open door in case there was any evidence right inside the door that I would have tainted by stepping into it. And that's always stuck with me because I couldn't figure out why he was blocking me from going in. Because he wanted to make sure that I was paying attention to the evidence from the very threshold in. Sometimes even well before the threshold. You'd pull up at a crime scene, you'd park maybe 5 or 10 car lengths down, never pulled right into the driveway. You don't know if the bad guy or the bad girl used a vehicle, and there might be evidence in the driveway that you roll the patrol car over, and now you don't even see the evidence, and you never get a chance to make an arrest and close a case and get a conviction because you were so busy getting there, you didn't pay attention to what was going on right underneath your feet, under your tires, under your patrol car. So it was terribly helpful to me very early on to start looking, and this is even after the academy, who, what, where, when, why, and how. The things that you need to successfully be able to fill out a police report. Well, when you are promoted and you make it to criminal investigator, those things take on a huge focus in your mind because you want to get the evidence. You took a job to serve and protect. You want to be able to close the case and make people think you got the bad guy or the bad girl. It'll be okay. I can fall asleep in the future. It takes a courage for around the corner. You never know what the evidence is going to present. And when we go in with a preconceived notion, we know that our minds love bias. So when you go in with a bias, that's all you see. Your mind goes, shortcut. Yeah, there's your bias. There's your evidence right here. Bag and tag it. No. You and I don't get to work like that in the labyrinth. We can't go in with a bias. We have to have this concept of when he no longer knows what he's doing, it's then that a painter, that an investigator does good things. I don't know what I'm doing when I first get to a crime scene. You and I don't know what we're doing when we first get to this moment at hand. We wait and see what unfolds in the moment. Then we go, aha, gotcha. And then you turn and you look. You go, okay, where's the next gotcha? That's how life unfolds in the labyrinth. So we can still aim high. We're not looking for a bird's eye view. We're not trying to get up over top of the labyrinth to see, oh, let me see, stand on my tippy toes. Yeah, I think I can get over there. No, it's right here. No tippy toes. Maybe on the ground, all fours, looking for evidence, whatever you can find. So it's the sharpness of that vision and a belief in yourself, a respect for yourself. Because when you have that respect, people say, oh, well, it's impossible to be unhappy. I absolutely agree. I'm the one that started the saying. When you remember who you are, it's impossible to be unhappy because happiness, like evidence, is everywhere. All you have to do is slow down long enough to find it. Can't do it if we're constantly taunted by traumas, taunted by the fairy tales of the future, which is why we pin the tail in a trauma. Bag it, tag it, put it in an evidence locker. See ya. Label it, call it out. And then once that energy goes, it gives us more energy to focus our vision, to be sharp. I would think it's, you go out in the sun. And you're out in the sun, it's a warm day. It's going to be like 900 degrees here today. But but luckily, only 95% humidity. So at least it's not 100% humidity. A little bit of hope. But if you go out in the sun, it's hot. But if you take a magnifying glass, then it can just burn whatever you focus those rays on. Well, that's what it's like for you and I. We have all the energy coming in. If it's distracted because we haven't pinned the tail on our traumas, our mind's busy binge thinking all the other things. Like a speed bag. The monkey mind that the Buddhist talks about. When our mind's freed up from all that nagging, then we can focus our vision. We can really pay attention to what's going on at hand. And what happens when we pay attention to what's going on at hand, when we're lost in that moment, when we're lost in that investigation, when we're lost in being a detective right now in this moment? Oh, what do we find? What do we uncover? Happiness. That's why time flies. So developing the courage for around the corner. Developing the courage to face chaos. To face uncertainty. To throw ourselves into the labyrinth going, I am ready. Now, I guess I love this quote. The angel rides the whirlwind and directs the storm. Whatever storm we're in, there's an angel in there. There's some good will come out of it. What is it? Every silver lining has a dark cloud. So that's why I root for dark clouds. Because the dark clouds, got to be a silver lining in here somewhere. Which is another aspect of all natural being. People say, oh, you got to be optimistic. Nope. That's taking a bias into the investigation at hand. Got to be pessimistic. Nope. It's taking a bias into the investigation at hand. All natural being means you bring all of you. Not just your good thoughts, not just your not so good thoughts. All of you. Embrace who you are. Respect who you are. Are we always going to have great days? No. No. We're humans. We always going to have crappy. We're always going to have lousy days? No. We're humans. It's a mixed bag. You and me, mixed bags. But if we don't admit that we're mixed bags, then we disrespect ourselves, and happiness is never going to come. Yes, sometimes we react. We don't put our best forward. Sometimes we get angry. We get ticked off. We do this or we do that. Maybe we're not as compassionate. We can't beat ourselves up over it. Maybe we were tired. Maybe our mind was somewhere else. Maybe both things, same thing, really. But we don't beat ourselves up over it. That's just more baggage. All natural being is taking the good and the bad. No preconceived notions of what's going to turn out in the moment. We're just in it for the gig. We're in it for the investigation. Oh, what did I just uncover? Happiness. That's the way it works. Here in the labyrinth. And I think that's why you hear, oh, it's so important. Everyone's looking for it. Why can so few people find it? Because we're always busy chasing something else. Wherever your feet are, it's standing in one big puddle of happiness. But we're so distracted.
Oh, I can't stand in a puddle of happiness. These are new shoes.
Right? Yes? Happiness is all around us. Maybe it's happiness in the Higgs field. It's everywhere. Paraphrasing the kingdom of heaven, happiness is spread upon the face of the earth, but men do not see it. Women do not see it. We don't see it. Why? Because we're called outside of this moment, stalking some future happiness. Well, how would you know? If you can't identify happiness in the moment, how will you know it when you find it down the road?
Oh, don't worry, Bri. I'll know.
How will you know? If you can't speak German, you can't speak German. You can't speak Swahili, you can't speak Swahili. If you can't speak happiness, you can't speak happiness. If you don't know in the moment, if you can't find it now, how will you ever uncover it in the future? You won't even know what you're looking for. So when we craft the around-the-corner courage, when we aim high and deep in this moment, not some future date, going back to Degas, not some future date, but right now, when we sharpen our vision, then we got nothing left to do but have some happiness. All right, let's take a quick break. Good golly, look at the time. All right, we'll be right back.
No self-help industry tactics here. You're listening to The Real Deal, Brian Brawdy, with All Natural Being on IPM Nation.
All right, we talked about this the other day. It falls into the self-help industry tactics. You do the acronym. You do the acronym. This is from, what is the name? Oh, Fast Company. It looks like a pretty cool blog. I was intrigued by this. I got an email from someone. Thank you very much, by the way. Got an email from Sue saying, hey, look, this might be something you want to highlight on the show. So, please, let me remind you, allnaturalbeing.com, or if you know how to spell my name, brianbrawdy.com, tomato, same thing. Send me an email. I'll send you one back. We'll hook up that way. Also, is throughout the show, 331-684-7685. Let me know what you're thinking. We'll incorporate it into the show. Here's what I found interesting. They're saying, everyone says, I saw this Beyonce quote the other day.
Nobody works harder than me.
Well, that's funny. There's her. See, there's another synchronicity. There's her picture. It wasn't even mentioned in here. Oh, look at that. All right, that was an advertisement. Didn't see that coming. That's the beauty of living here in the labyrinth. But it talks about managing bodies are different than managing minds. And this is the one that I wanted to share because it's just like me. We'll be running out of time. Maybe we'll pick us back up tomorrow morning. But one of the ones when it talks about taking totally unstructured breaks. But the first part of the article, let me just get the author in because I don't want anyone to think this is my material. This is Mr. Pollock, Judah Pollock, and Olivia Fox Cabane. Let me just say, if I'm mispronouncing those, please accept my apologies. Or come up with pen names that are easier for people to pronounce. One of the others. Okay, but in any event, adopt an off-rhythm attitude. Quote, in the 1980s, Japanese school system was revered for producing excellent students. And most of us, right, nose to the grindstone, let's get in there. Rough them up, make sure they keep studying. But then later, they found, when they studied what was going on, they found something that was like, whoa, wait a minute. While Japanese students had longer school days, quote, they took far more breaks, one every 40 to 50 minutes. They spent a full, quote, they spent a full 25% of their day on break. And yet they outperformed American students who were having their recess cut. So let me ask you, what are you doing to take a break today? Fascinating. You got to take a break or you're going to have a breakdown. What are you doing to take a break today? Take a 20-minute victory, 1/72nd of your day. Get off your own back. It's going to make you more productive, at least according to a whole host of studies. It says here, quote, in a similar finding, researchers Jim Lair and Tony Schwartz have discovered that high performers don't operate at 100% for long periods of time. Can't do it. It's like a sprint. Can't sprint all out for 10 miles. Instead, their energy oscillates from high to low and back again. The lesson here is pretty simple. Get into a rhythm. I love it. Every so often, take 20 minutes. Now, I'm not gonna convince everybody to go, okay, well, they said work for 40. I'm all over it. Every hour, take a 20-minute victory. Now, people are going to go, are you insane? Jury's still out, or like Sheldon on what is that show? The Big Bang Theory. I'm not crazy. My mom had me tested, right? Hear me out on this. What if you took a 20-minute victory every hour? You go, oh, Bri, it's too much. Great. How about if you took a 20-second victory every hour? Maybe we build into it. Maybe you feel a sense of being refreshed. I think I talked in the tease for this segment of living in the white spaces. Yeah, let's do this. We'll pick back up on this tomorrow morning because I think this will be a great one. What are you doing to get off your own back? What are you doing to take a nice deep breath? Have some fun. Give your brain a time out. All the research in the world says that's the way to work a human mind. Give it a break. What are you doing? What are you going to do today? If it won't be 20 minutes every hour, because you just be a creative genius bar none at the end of that. If you don't want to jump in, talk all the time, put your big toe in the water to check the temperature of the pool, you don't want to jump all in, how about a 20-second victory every hour? Top of the hour, set the alarm on your watch. When it goes off, breathe in, exhale, scan the horizon, check your six, see what's going on around you. Then think, then talk, then tap into your energy, then take action. Whatever you want to do. Give yourself a 20-second victory at the top of every hour. I promise you, you're going to look down and that puddle you're standing in is happiness. All right. I want to get the rest of this article. We'll do it tomorrow. Hey, again, I'll keep the names of the officers in Baton Rouge, officers of Dallas, the names of people in the news that were killed all over. That's what you and I can do. As frustrating as it can become when we see all the violence, when we see all the anger, we can make sure that it doesn't weather us, that we're resistant to weathering. We find the good in folks. We find the commonality, and that's what we keep leading with. And just do our best to bring our own bold, to bring our best, to reconnect to who we are at our core. Because evil hates that. Evil, we talked before about what is ego. It's estrangement, gone overboard, estranged from the field. That's all evil is. It's been removed from the field for so long, it's forgotten that it's a part of the field. And it doesn't like it when you and I do everything we can to remind people that we're all a part of that field. Holy Spirit, heaven, or the Higgs field, whatever you want to call it, dropped here by the Almighty, by aliens, if you're an atheist, we still share that commonality, that field. Gravity works on all of it, on all of us, regardless of where we were born, the continent we grew up on, or something as mercurial as the pigment, ethereal is probably a better word, the pigment of our skin. All right, let's get out of here. Have a fantastic day. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you tomorrow.
You've been listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.
Bring your own bold. Be nice to yourself. Be nice to each other. We're all going to do great once we all are. Talk to you soon.
IPMNation.com.